Well, if it's between a rock and a hard place, my money's on the hard place. Here's a look at Mattel He-Man in the Master Universe. Ram Man, heroic human battering Ram. It's an exciting time to be a Master Universe fan. For longtime fans and for a new generation of kids who love the action and adventure, it's time to experience the thrilling action and adventure of He-Man, Skeletor, The Secrets of Castle Grayskull, and much more. The figures in this collection stand 5.5 inches tall and have 16 movable joints, so they're highly posable for imaginative and action-oriented fun. I can only imagine the kinds of headaches that Hardhead has here. For more H's, how about we take the tape measure and see how tall the cartoon collection Ram Man stands. This one's a little bit more personal to me because Ram Man was the very first Master Universe figure I had as a kid. To see him now as a cartoon collection release is pretty cool. Ram Man, though, is going to stand at about 5 3/4 of an inch in height. That translates, though, to a figure that's 14 centimeters tall. All right, finally some good guys. We've been outnumbered by bad guys far too long. First, here's what the figure looks like with He-Man. Now, Ram Man comes included with the Shakoti idol that comes from the episode House of Shakoti. It happens to be the same episode that also has Prince Adam and Orko. Now, we don't have a cartoon collection of Orko, but we do have a cartoon collection of Prince Adam, finally. Now, Prince Adam also came included, of course, with Cringer, so we can bring him in as well. Bring in some of the other cartoon collection figures. There's Man-at-Arms. Here's Stratos. And here's also, as well, Teela. Even though really he's not technically a good guy. I mean, no one would ever confuse, I feel, Mantenna here for a good guy. He was, though, part of this wave, so I'm going to bring him in also as well. Now, we also can bring in the Master Universe Origins version of Ram Man, and something, though, that we weren't able to do with Mantenna before. Here's also what he looks like with a new Eternia version of Ram Man, too. Breaking them out, Ram Man has the following accessories. Not that I would consider this necessarily an accessory or really a good use of paper, but the figure comes included with a pamphlet to tell you that you can divorce his arms from his torso, you can remove his head, you can detach his lower half of his body, and you can yank off his boots. So only make mention of this. Whew, off it goes. The figure also comes included with a mini-comic. It so happens to be the same mini-comic shared as well with Mantenna. Well, not sharing it. They share the same images, but they're not sharing the exact comic. That would imply that one comic has to then be going to Mantenna. When Mantenna's finished looking through it like Radioactive Man #1, has to then give it to Milhouse. No, you get two of the exact same comic, Horde Invasion. Also both advertise, obviously, the other figures on the back, She-Ra, Ram Man, and Mantenna we've already had a look at. Evil Spy with the pop-out eyes. Love it. As for the actual interior of the comic, I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to be the one that spills the beans. I try not to spill the beans. If I'm going to spill beans on anything, it's toast. Beans on toast, yum, yum, yum. But I'm not going to be giving away anything for the interior of this comic. If you want to read this for yourself, feel free to do that. There's some, of course, advertisements for the Snake Men inside. There's Swiftwind and some of She-Ra's friends there as well. But again, a nice little comic. Again, we're probably going to be getting that. I know we're going to be getting it again. Not shared with She-Ra. She-Ra's going to get her own comic. And then it doesn't have to go, of course, to Martin. I can't stand Martin. What I can stand, though, is the figure does come included with the Idol of Shakoti. Shakoti actually was a 2-part episode. And kind of like they go to a temple, a pyramid, with, like, I guess, Eternia's archaeologist. I don't know, does he even really have a name? He should have come up with a more clever name than I'm just literally Eternia's archaeologist. Like, I don't know, Diggy, I don't know. I've got nothing. I was trying to come up with something witty. If you can think of something that would be fun to call an archaeologist for Eternia, let me know down below in the comments section. Best answer will get, I don't know, a virtual star. Virtual star maybe should be given as well to the idol of Shakoti. Now, Shakoti actually was a rather interesting character in that cartoon. One of the other fun characters that happened to appear in that episode as well is Mask. Now, I think we did get Mask. I know for certain we got ourselves Shakoti from Matty Collector. I don't know what's the likelihood that Mattel is going to be doing that for the cartoon collection, but I hope that we get a Shakoti, and I hope we get a Mask. Mask happens to remove his face. Orko looks at the Mask at one point, kind of gets knocked out. Mask. Gotta look it up. It's a pretty cool character. I think the actual idol is pretty cool. It's made of pretty soft rubber, though. The thing, unfortunately, about that, though, is it's not really intended to be held by anybody. It's literally something that we found on the wall. I think, in fact, we actually see an idol of Shakoti on the front of the door that He-Man slices through. But I don't really know what I'm going to be doing with this now that I have it. I mean, I suppose there are some suggested areas that if I had a nail on the wall, for example, I could probably hang it by, I don't know, what little remnants we have of little ledges on the inside of this. But this, if anything, should be hung on the wall. I don't think it's something I'm just going to be displaying alongside Ram Man. It just seems so really out of place. Let's move that off to the side, though. That's really the only accessories, unfortunately, that come included with Ram Man. Now, Ram Man is pretty interesting. I like the look of him a lot. I only have really one problem with the figure. I'm not going to block everybody by my blasted finger in the front of everything. No spilling beans here. Unfortunately, though, his shoulders are very easy to remove. You can see right now, I mean, it took little to no effort at all to actually take the shoulder pads off his body altogether. They fall off way too frequently. I mean, a lot of times when you also move the head too, like the head freely moves inside the shoulders, but like the moment you want to start moving anything else, you just feel like you're sliding the shoulders off. Had there only been a place on the back, maybe with a peg, that could have plugged onto the back of his torso, just to keep from the shoulders from actually moving. Even if they shifted around on the front, I would know at least they weren't going to be leaving the house and walking down the street. The actual shoulder pads, if I don't drop them, are made of a decent enough plastic. You can see there's a little bit of marbling there as well. The marbling is nowhere near what I would expect it to be for the fact that they were using a kind of pearl silver plastic like this. Of course, he's got the chains down below as well. It matches that of his bracelets, the belt that he has on the front, and of course his helmet too. I guess maybe while we have this off, one thing gives me at least the chance to show you guys is what his head looks like up close and personal. Now, you can't remove his helmet. You couldn't really remove the helmet either from the original vintage toy, nor could you do that as well with the Origins. The Origins technically did have, I was just going to bring him back here for a second, 2 swappable heads. I don't know what it is. Like, even though I loved Ram Man as a kid, he was my favorite character just because he was the first He-Man figure I had in my collection. I don't know, there's just something very underwhelming about the Origins. I may have even said that in the review of him. Yes, he does have swappable heads, so if you don't like the look of Ram Man here, you can just pop the head off and replace it with another one. But I feel like the cartoon collection at least gives us a better looking Ram Man. If you're not collecting the cartoon stuff, unfortunately, you could be missing out on that. I guess one thing you also would be missing out on, a segue for that, is if you were to take off the shoulder pads, just put them back on here for a second. One thing that you can see, though, by removing him, you can see there's a lot more sculpting going on to his torso. He's also got their ties on the front of his tunic. Nice little belt down there below as well. The belt doesn't look like there's a way to remove it. It looks like they've actually sculpted it to like the lower half of his skirting. So my guess is they probably just slid this up, and I bet you, yeah, you'd be able to just slide this off completely if you want to. The colors are pretty close. You may notice, though, that the skirting is just a little bit brighter than the actual top of his torso. But, I mean, half the time anyways, you're probably just going to be covering it anyways with his shoulders. And, again, like the shoulders, I don't feel like they ever feel fully committed to the idea of wanting to be part of this figure. Again, like the head sculpt looks really good on him. I think more so in the cartoon, he's generally more of like a darker gray than the shinier plastic color that we get here. But for the most part, like, he looks a lot like Ram Man. Ram Man's in very few episodes of the Master Universe. That kind of goes with the territory. Unless you're Man-at-Arms and Teal, you get top billing. Pretty much all the other Masters get sprinkled around to 1 or 2 appearances. But, I mean, of course, with Ram Man, one of the notable things is the fact that his legs do spring. Luckily, though, none of the rubber appliance pieces go over top of this one. The same, unfortunately, can't be said for the new Eternia Ram Man, which, of course, added the rubber overlays over top of his body. I know eventually this is just going to split. It bothers me every time I see this figure. But yeah, this Ram Man isn't going to have that at all. He does, though, manage still to pull off knee articulation. Although with the knee articulation, I noticed on my figure, it's just really, really tight. Speaking for the articulation on the figure, obviously the head can rotate back and forth. I mean, while he's sort of contained inside the shoulders like this, I mean, the head can freely move the way it wants. You can go up, it can go down, you can also rotate it back and forth. I think generally, though, in the cartoon, the helmet usually is over top of his shoulders, but it's not something you can pull off. Like, if you go to pull off his head, like that, and then you want to put the shoulders on first, because this was my initial thought. I thought, okay, well, if the shoulders are moving around way too much, what if I took the head and I put it over top? But it doesn't seem to quite clear it. You can see there's too much of a space between the ball joint and the peg joint. And I think, if anything, I would end up probably buckling the plastic for the tops of his shoulders. So if you have a similar idea of actually wanting to put the helmet over top, you can't. There's not enough space for that. So we'll just pop this back in place. And we'll pop, of course, the shoulders back in place. So yeah, his head moves quite freely. As for his arms, they come out at 90 degrees. You could, for the most part, rotate them all the way around. But again, like, here's where the problem that you're going to be facing. When you do rotate his arms, it sort of then forces the shoulder pads off his body altogether. He does have a bend in the elbow. The same elbow also, that bend in the elbow, also allows the forearm to rotate back and forth. The hands also rotate all the way around. You can also hinge them back and forth this way. Just pop the shoulders back in place. Swivel in the waist. Legs split out. You can see there's ball joints in there. There's a little bit of a swivel at the top of the thigh. Again, I would normally be able to say there's a bend at the knee, but the knee is just a very difficult thing to bend. You can see there's the hinge joint on the back. For all intents and purposes, this should be able to bend freely, and yet it's super tight on my figure. I guess that's not a bad thing. I mean, I'm not planning necessarily to get this guy in running poses. For his boots, though, they are separate, though, from the rest of his legs, so you can rotate those all the way around. There is an ankle rocker. There's also a hinge up and down for the ankles. So, again, like, he has all the articulation where it counts. If anything can be said for, though, Ram Man, though he looks great, he's not the most practical when the way they've assembled his shoulders. I mean, again, like with the other examples of Ram Man, let's just get this guy completely straight. For the example, though, of the new Eternia, even though I hate the legs on him, I mean, again, he never had any issues really with his shoulders moving around. Nor really was the case when we looked at the Origins version. I mean, those shoulder pads aren't going anywhere. They're permanently attached to his body. I mean, yes, it does limit a lot more articulation with what you can actually do with his head, but at least I knew that the shoulders for Ram Man aren't going to start wandering off on their own. Ram Man looks good. I mean, like, again, he's a welcomed addition. I never would I be looking at these and thinking to myself, well, they were just filler figures. Ram Man is never a filler figure, even though technically he's a filler character. I mean, other than House of Shakoti 1 and 2, he's only appeared, I think, in what? 3 episodes? 4 episodes? Somebody I'm sure can correct me down below in the comment section. But, you know, again, the fact that we have more masters, especially like good guys, that's few and far between up to this point, really. I mean, we've been getting more bad guys than anything else. Of course, we will be able to add as well the other figure that's part of this wave, which happens to be, of course, She-Ra. She-Ra is also going to be the first figure of the Rebellion part of the She-Ra cartoon. I'm looking forward to getting that one also opened up as well. For the accessory, though, again, going back to the Shakoti idol, I keep dropping this. It looks good, but I mean, it doesn't have any practical purpose. Short of maybe just finding a way to suspend this or hang this on the wall. I mean, I'd rather a Shakoti figure, to be all honest, and it's short of the one that we did get from Matty Collector. I don't know what likelihood that Mattel in this instance will release a cartoon collection of Shakoti. I hope that they do. I hope they also release a cartoon version of Mask. I kind of feel bad now that I downplay the Eternian archaeologist, whose name, by the way, was Melectha. And Melectha, like Ram Man, only appeared in a small number of episodes. But unlike Ram Man, I don't think Melectha has ever been given a figure. Shakoti has, part of the Matty Collector. And while we don't have yet one of a Shakoti for a cartoon collection, we have at least the Shakoti idol. The problem with the idol, though, is that there's no real place to store it with the figure. It's not like Ram Man can hold the idol, so I'm sort of just relegated to either have it leaning against something, or the other idea I was kind of thinking about, any character accessories that aren't going to be held by those figures. I might just end up putting at the bottom basement of Snake Mountain, sort of like the treasure that Skeletor has stolen. That might end up being the place where the Shakoti idol ends up being, until at least I have a decision down the road to have it displayed behind the figures, which I guess probably could just be suspended with only a nail or maybe a little bit of tack on the back of your wall. Ram Man, though, is a fine-looking figure. Fine, short of maybe just one problem with the shoulders. The shoulder pads are so easily able to come off of him. I wish there was a better way to plug that onto the back of his body. He doesn't have necessarily straps that armor normally would have had, but I think in a case like this, can we all agree that Ram Man should never really have his shoulders be removed? And unless they have plans to use the body, I mean, the body could be easily tooled again for something else down the road. The shoulders, I feel, if anything, should have been plugged onto the back of his body or just permanently adhered. Because the only problem you're going to be facing is the problem that you're going to be facing every single time you move the figure's arms. Those shoulders want to fall off the figure's body. Short of that, though, again, like I really like the look of Ram Man. And being a personal soft spot for Ram Man. Sounds strange. One of my first figures, if not the first figure that I got of Master Universe back when I was a kid, to finally get a cartoon collection of him is going to go rather nicely with all the cartoon collection figures that I've been collecting thus far. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. And how do you also feel when it comes to accessories that include these cartoon collections? Should they already be figure accessories that can be held by a figure? I.e. like a weapon, a jewel, something along those lines? Or do you kind of like the idea that they're branching off and doing other things as well? Have you ever seen the House of Shakoti? Let me know also down below in the comments section. And would you also be down with the idea of getting a Shakoti, or for that matter, a Mask figure? Once again, if you guys did enjoy this video, do it a solid, throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. I hope so. Hit that subscribe, yes. Turn on that bell, sure. But the most, of course, the most important thing is that you're coming back. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.